to begin with, when you look at the crimes of a Russell Williams, or, for example, in Nova Scotia more recently with the spree killer, people immediately, including, law professionals, legal professionals, police, FBI officers, one FBI officer said, was quoted as saying, well, you just look at the magnitude of the violence. Of course he's a psychopath. And the fact is, you can't conflate those two. The criminality is not the same as psychopathy. Psychopathy is a personality or a characterological disorder. So in order to determine, when we do assessments for psychopathy, it's a semi-structured interview with the offender. It's gathering a lot of collateral information, so file-based information or talking to people that would know. So in the Correctional Service of Canada, for whom I've done a lot of assessments, you have a lot of information from various people, parole officers, community, family members, etc. So you do the semi-structured interview, you do the file-based data, and then there's a measure, the psychopathy checklist, which was developed by Dr. Robert Hare, and it has 20 items that we as clinical psychologists are then charged with assessing. And the 20 items include, so we're asked to, based on all the information that we've gathered, we are asked to consider if the person, for example, demonstrates glib and superficial charm. So would that be a no, a maybe, a yes? Grandiose sense of self-worth, pathological lying, impulsivity, irresponsibility. So there's 20 items that we have to go through, and we do it from an evidence-based, it's not just a judgment of what they're convicted for, right? So we have to go through that scale and then decide if the person meets a threshold for psychopathy. And that's a high threshold. Not a lot of people meet the threshold for psychopathy. And it includes two big factors. One is the interpersonal affective, the lack of remorse, lack of empathy, shallow affect, manipulative, conning, all those personality pieces. And the second factor is lifestyle, antisocial lifestyle. And this is where, you have people who live predatory existences, not predatory, parasitic existences. They tend to, live off other people. They're irresponsible. They don't hold down jobs. They demonstrate criminal versatility, meaning they, do a whole bunch of stuff. They fight at the tavern on Friday night, and then they steal here, and they do all sorts of stuff. And the fact is that somebody like Russell Williams, if you look at his history, he doesn't have a lot of antisocial lifestyle. He had realistic goals in his life. He was a successful, he had worked successfully. He had completed university and a master's degree. So he had lots of indicators that he was, by all accounts, a pro-social, successful individual. He doesn't have a lot of the antisocial lifestyle pieces. So whether he would meet the threshold based on that, is a question. Even with the interpersonal affective, certainly his crimes tell us, indicate a lack of remorse, a lack of empathy. The second woman that he murdered, he had basically convinced her that he was going to let her go. And she's walking towards the door and he kills her, and doesn't seem to be too distressed by that. Not as distressed as he was when his cat died, for example, which is when he did demonstrate apparently a lot of remorse. And his worries about his wife demonstrated a lot of concern. In that interview with Jim Smith, he was very concerned about how upset his wife was going to be about her house being torn apart. Because Jim Smith told him, as we speak, Russ, your house is being torn apart. We're going to find all this stuff. And that was upsetting to him. So it's not that he was incapable of those emotions, but they were very compartmentalized, right? So when we're assessing psychopathy, it's not a given. It's not, it can't be equated to the offense for which they're convicted. Well, you often hear people say that, right? That psychopaths are really intelligent. And I think we have to be careful that just because they're skillful in conning and manipulating and, lying without compunction, they can get away with things. They can elude custody, they can escape lots of situations, and that can look very intelligent. Like in Russell Williams' case, I don't think there's any question that, he's an intelligent man. That's demonstrated in lots of ways. But I don't think we can assume that intelligence is a sort of prerequisite or a natural correlate of psychopathy, because of course we do have lots of psychopaths who end up in prison, not the majority of incarcerated offenders by any means, but there's certainly psychopaths who end up in prison or who commit crimes in the community or just who mess up people's lives in the community. And they're not necessarily, any more intelligent than the average individual, but they do engage in behaviors that can make us look stupid, right? Because so we sometimes think they're really much more skillful and clever than they are. They engage in behaviors that work for them. They can lie. They can look you in the eye and lie to your face, tell you whatever you want to hear. And for most people, the non-psychopaths, we find that hard to believe that somebody can do that, right? So we get caught. We can get caught.
Thanks for checking out this episode from our All About Analysis channel. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like, hit subscribe, and click that bell. And don't forget to share this video. See you next time.